Boys,
Hey.
we are live.
All right. Hey,
We
LinkedIn.
What's up, LinkedIn? What's today? Tuesday? Wednesday.
Today's Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday, LinkedIn.
Happy Wednesday, LinkedIn. All of you.
all six of y'all who are watching. Well, again, thank you for tuning in. We'll go ahead and jump. Say what?
7. My mom's logging on right now.
7. Yeah. I think 8. My mom's logging on too. Hey, Karen. So all that being said, let's go ahead and dive in. Really excited to hang out with y'all today for a few minutes. I think we're going to make this into a telethon or a LinkedIn-a-thon. So we're going to be going for the next 12 hours.
Very good.
Yeah. So hope everyone's hydrated. But no, we're going to be with y'all for the next 30, 35 minutes to really talk about the job search process and really how to navigate the process. Because it's kind of this black hole and no one knows what to do. And it's confusing. And then working with recruiters on top of that is very confusing. So us three on this call are going to obviously break that down. But first off, I want to do quick intros. These are my dear friends on this call. So I want them to endear themselves to everybody watching. So Jake, first is first. Give us the intro. Let's go from there.
First is first. That's
first is first, man. You're first. You're always first.
First, you're last.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, so I'm Jake Shepard. I'm senior director at Vaco in Raleigh, North Carolina. Been here about 5 years now, and it's been fun. Just loving on the community, getting to know a bunch of techies, and building some relationships here. I lead a engineering team as well as build out technical teams here in the area. And I've got a passion for software products and for economic development.
So good. You rehearsed that before this?
That was good.
None of it's true.
Really,
yeah.
That was really good. Dan, you're next, man. What's up?
Yeah, man. Dan Thompson, Tampa, Florida. I lead our IT practice down here. Gosh, been with Vaco almost 7 years now, which is the longest I've ever been in a job. Probably the longest I'll ever be at a job again. But this place is incredible. So lead the tech team, do a lot of engineering down here as well, kind of similar to Jake. I do a lot of my focus on economic development as well. There's an area up by the University of South Florida area here in Tampa that I really focus on and help with some committees there. And I'm super passionate about education and technology as well. So serve as the chairman for Hillsborough County's IT education for high school students as well. So outside of that, a big wine aficionado, boat captain, and
you are.
And I host a podcast as well. Actually, I host 2 podcasts.
You do host 2 podcasts, which we will get to. But my name is Taylor Desseyn. I am the recruiting manager here in Nashville. I also mainly focus all of my recruiting in the software development space. So at this point, I've met over 4,000 engineers, and that is quickly, I'm quickly adding to that list. I've had the unique opportunity to speak at 15 to 20 code conferences across the Southeast whenever we used to travel to go places. So that was fun. And also, put out content on YouTube and have a text messaging platform and do kind of all more the social, I guess, marketing media stuff. So that's a little about me. And I've been with Vaco now for going on 9 years this year. So that's pretty crazy. Extremely thankful.
He started when he was 14.
Yeah, I started when I was 14. And so, very thankful to be here. And I help obviously lead an amazing recruiting team here in Nashville of 9 individuals. So that's a little about me. A little bit about us before we dive in. We do have a podcast. You should check it out. It's called The Unicorn Finders. Basically, Jake, Dan, and I came together with this idea to really start finding the unicorns in business and relationships. So companies, individuals who have scaled, who've done incredible things. And so we've put out 7 podcasts now. We just dropped one today. So please check it out, The Unicorn Finders. And our website is theunicornfinders.com. So a little shameless self-plug. Let's go ahead and get into what we're actually here to talk about, and that's the job search process. And so the first things first, I want to talk to Jake. Jake, what would you say your the first thing individuals need to do when they do get that pink slip, when they obviously are told, hey, listen, tomorrow's going to be your last day?
Gosh, I mean, I think that the first thing at this point, and I've said this before, and I'm definitely going to keep saying it again, is just take a breath. Take a breath. Don't panic. You probably have a second you probably got a 2-week notice. You probably got, hey, at the end of the month, we're going to do this, or maybe a severance. Just breathe for a second. At least take the day before you do anything rash, any panicking, any sort of writing a bad review on Glassdoor about that company for their mismanagement of funds during a pandemic, and any of all that kind of stuff, because all that ends up coming back on you and hinders your ability to be strategic. I heard someone say this last weekend, actually, there's a difference between having a reaction and having a response. And in that sense, it's the reaction is not going to get you anywhere quick, but it's going to just be a quick reaction. But the response is what's going to be strategic and allow you to actually move forward. So I'd say take a breath.
I love that. Dan, thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, that's huge. Jake makes a great point, is to take a second and to breathe. I would say that after that, it's to really start to look and evaluate at, where do I go from here, right? Once you've taken a second and sometimes take a day or so, and I know that that's sometimes easier said than done, but take a day, kind of collect your thoughts, reevaluate, because this for a lot of people is an opportunity for them to decide, was I happy in the kind of job that I was in, or do I want to make a pivot, right? And then from there, it's starting to look at yourself and what are you going to do to get yourself out there. And I know we're going to talk a little bit more about it here in a second, is to start to reach out to your network and connect with people that you've wanted to, talk with in the past, or companies that you've wanted to work for in the past. It's starting to make sure that your LinkedIn is up to date and that you're easily found on LinkedIn. We want to make sure that your resume is up to date and all of that. So, all of those things are things that we need to start, doing. But the first thing, like Jake said, is to take a second. And then after that, what we're going to talk a little bit more, is to create a routine for yourself as well. Don't make your job search your entire life. This is an opportunity for you to now look at, other online certifications or ways to improve yourself as well. So all of those things that Jake said, plus, all right, now what, right? Now that the inevitable or the potentially inevitable has happened, now what do I do from there?
Yeah, I love that. I think one thing that I've been working on in personal counseling, we won't go into all that on this call, but one of the things I've been working on is that I think a lot of times in life, I think a lot of individuals think they need to react immediately, and they don't, right? I think in this situation, it's very much of be in the moment. Listen, this isn't good, but understanding that, hey, listen, in 2 weeks and 3 weeks, you're going to be at a different place, but it's going to take some time and you have to move forward. But knowing that once you get that notice is just to try to take a breath. I mean, I think if anybody wants to log off now at this point, I think the main thing to get off of is just take a breath, just relax, and then move forward and chip away at this. So let's go ahead and start kind of breaking down the process of what's first. So the first thing is the most important thing is resumes, right? And so I know I was chatting with y'all offline before we went live about how I tweeted something yesterday about the length of a resume, and I had software developers all over the country get on that tweet. So I'm definitely curious. I mean, I think the biggest thing is resume length, but let's talk about that, and then let's talk about what a resume should include. So Dan, you first.
Yeah. So I would say the first thing is no matter what the experts, if you will, on LinkedIn tell you, there's no exact length of a resume. I always tell people a resume is your story. And so some people can tell that story in a clear, concise manner and get it done in 1 page. For some people, that's 2 pages. I would say that there's probably a maximum, and that's probably, anything more than 2.5 pages is probably a little bit too much. But tell your story. I always tell people that the most important thing that somebody could do when they're looking at your resume is look at where you've been and where you currently are, and then ultimately see a series of progression of where you potentially, that person can kind of map out, well, where does this person potentially want to be? I would say a couple things about a resume. Obviously, make sure that it's there's no errors, that there's no spell check is built in now, right? So all those little red squiggly lines, make sure that they're gone. All those little blue squiggly lines, make sure that they're gone, right? Number 2 is make sure that the formatting is uniform, make sure that the font and font sizes are all the same. So I would do that. That's the number one thing that we look at, is if we open up your resume in Word and we see it chock full of red lines and blue lines and everything else, we're just going to this is the one document that somebody can give us that they have 100% complete control over, and this is what they chose to do. So make sure that that's done. Number 2 is be quantifiable, right, with your information. So I would say, any achievements, any goals, any dollar amounts, any savings, any, team size, any efficiencies, whatever you've done, the more numbers that you can have and the less of a job description and more of a story about what you did in that job are the things that we're going to be looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. Jake, you next, man.
Yeah, I mean, I just saw someone, Amanda, drop in the chat there. How long should you go back on employment history on your resume? I mean, that's a great point. I think that anything, especially if you're in technology beyond the last 10 years, doesn't need a lot of detail. It just needs that you were there in your title, and maybe one key accomplishment. If you're like, hey, I helped save the company $400 million for some weird reason, then do that, right? But other than that, last 10 years should suffice, and just have the title on there.
Yeah.
Now, what I do love about LinkedIn right now is that you can have all of the template is already built for a resume on LinkedIn. I mean, you go in and you just fill in the blanks, and now they've got this new export a PDF feature, and it changes the format so it doesn't look like it's LinkedIn, and it just shoots it out already formatted, ready to go. And since you have to fill out your LinkedIn anyway in this digital world, you might as well start there, and then you can export it as that. If you don't know where you're starting, it's a great start.
I love that. I love that idea. I mean, really using LinkedIn as a framework to how to write your resume.
Yeah.
I think another thing, going back to Amanda's question, and again, if anyone's watching have questions, throw it in the chat. We'll try to get to it. We'll have a question and answer portion at the end of this little session. If we can't work it into obviously kind of what we're talking about. So my biggest thing is I would put on your resume, especially in tech, what you want to get called for, right? I mean, I know there's a lot of developers out there that, worked in mainframe and have obviously transitioned now, and they're not doing that. And they have mainframe verbiage in their resume, and they always come to me and go, why am I getting calls? I'm like, well, if you have any sort of inkling of mainframe in your resume, recruiters are pretty terrible. We're pretty terrible as a whole. And so they're going to call you because you've done it 20 years ago. So really have what you want.
Yeah.
To get called for in your resume. And also too, and for me, like a quick breakdown on what I want to see in your resume. I want to see main projects listed out, right? In layman's terms, like, hey, I've helped develop the chat feature for customers to interact with, the company, right? So I want it written like that. And then I want 3-4 bullet points specifically outlining the tools, the technical skills that you use to work in that application or project. And then I want a summary of your entire tech stack. And again, I know I'm coming from a software perspective because that's my focus, but I think that can be applied to everybody. If you're in the project management space, right? Give me the main project of what you led, what you PM'd, what task you use, right? Did you use Visio? Did you use Microsoft Project? And then obviously at the very end of that little blurb, give me all the tools you used again, because I think your resume needs to have the functional side of things, right? So where people can read it and understand what you did, but also have enough tech jargon or buzzwords, whatever industry you're in, so the recruiters can call you.
Right.
And I think another thing too, your resume needs to be this living, breathing document. A lot of individuals just submit one resume for all the jobs, and that's wrong.
Right.
So I didn't know if y'all had any more thoughts on the resumes that we can move on.
There's a couple of comments in here that I want to address. And Taylor, you're exactly right. You need to tailor your job description for the jobs that you're applying for. But more importantly, the job that you submit to, or the resume that you submit to a job you can bring more information to your interview when you get there, right? Like, I don't mind if somebody brings an additional addendum, if you will, or more to their resume when I interview them in person, because I never know where that story is going to be. Like, whereas I don't want to necessarily know that I want to know if they did mainframe 20 years ago, because you never know what they might have done, right? Or they might have been a cool project, or it might be something that I'm interested in.
Or they helped with that transition to modern.
Right, exactly. What did you do from there? How did you adapt to the change from mainframe to, VB or whatever? But there's two questions in here, and they're kind of somewhat connected. One's from Vicky, and it says, is hiring a resume writer a good investment? And then Timothy asks, is any format?
We're all shaking our heads
to get your resume through the applicant tracking system. So the reason I'm grouping those together is because there's a lot of people on LinkedIn that share that they know how to beat the ATS. Let me tell you something like this. The ATS is not like some weird dragon that guards this huge castle. Like, an ATS ultimately is a system that pulls your name, your information, and parses it into an area that's searchable. And then basically, for the most part, it takes your Word or PDF resume and turns it into what almost looks like Notepad, right? And then there's another document feature on there where you can go and then open it. So there's a lot of things out there about what an ATS system is and isn't. And I don't want you guys to get scared, because a lot of people will say that you should hire me, a resume writer, to make your resume ATS proof. you know what makes your resume ATS proof is putting all of the information that we just told you should be in there. The technology, their skill set that you have, the quantifiable and qualifiable and quantifiable information that's in there, and then just make it easy to read and user friendly. Like those are the things that make it ATS friendly, not paying somebody a couple $100. I'm not saying that there's not great resume writers that are out there, but there's so many great tips and tools that are out there for free on the internet that I think that you can use that money and that investment for you as an individual in so many other ways.
Yeah, and so much
just crushed that. So.
Yeah, for sure. And some of that is also if you feel like you're getting blocked and not getting through the ATS, maybe you're applying to the wrong job that doesn't match your background or the wrong type of company, and I think that when you're hunting, especially if you're actively, you need to be doing the research, and the research is what's going to lead you into finding a job that you're going to like better, 2, a company that you can believe in, and 3, something that's going to be hopefully a career growth opportunity for you, whether it's getting the right technology or being around the right people. And what I mean by research is that, to the point of that, if you think it is the gatekeeper of as a system or the dragon guarding the castle,
I was wondering where you're going.
Great example.
Yeah. Then it might be for you, right? But it could be simply because you just haven't done the footwork to know why you're applying and who you're applying to. And your resume doesn't reflect the job that you're applying for. I mean, when I moved to Raleigh in 2009, when there was absolutely nothing and I had no real experience about anything, and I was applying to crazy things. Like I think at one point I was like, yeah, I could totally be a nurse. Yeah. Let me just read some books and see what happens, and like, it was just insane. And I did not become a nurse. I'm not qualified, or patient enough. No. But doing the footwork of saying, hey, I really want to be a part of this company, and then going through LinkedIn and seeing who owns that job posting or who works on that team and reaching out to them, not just applying online and saying, hey, what can I do? If you have a favorite recruiter, though, maybe ask them first, and maybe they know the back door into that castle anyway. Yep. So, but yeah, I would say just do your research to make your resume specific to what you're looking for.
I love it. So let's move on, because again, a lot of topics to cover. So the next thing, let's talk about LinkedIn writing. So I know this is another kind of topic where people don't understand, like, is it my resume? Do I need a LinkedIn? Is there even a reason for me to be on it? So I'll take this because I'm very passionate about LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn right now, from an organic reach perspective, especially because we're all at home, is incredibly important and probably should be the most number one used app on your phone right now. And so when I say organic, when I post something on LinkedIn without any sort of ad money behind it, without any sort of anything, you get more views than you do on any other social media platform. And so what you can do is you can actually use that to hack the interview process. And if you start posting thoughtful content within your field and your industry, you're going to start getting some looks. And so, but to answer the question on, is your LinkedIn your resume? For me, it's not, but I'm going to let Jake and Dan dive into that as well. Jake, what are your thoughts on LinkedIn? How should you use it? And then Dan, you're next.
Well, things have slightly shifted a little bit in the urgency to hire masses of engineers at one given time. But what I would have said 3 months ago was that for me as a recruiter, I don't even need a resume. I'd rather just partner with people and that my brand can help carry you through the door into whatever client we're working with. Now at this point, it's, all right, I want LinkedIn to fill out everything. Let's tell the whole story. Let's get some recommendations on there. Start asking your previous manager and coworkers, hey, I know we worked together for 5 years or 2 years or 6 months or something. Would you mind writing me a recommendation as I'm looking for a role here? And throwing that on there. It's now, to tailor to your point earlier, it's telling the story. The resume tells a story. The LinkedIn tells a story now too, because you have that social aspect. Now, in the same time, be very cautious in understanding that I can look at all activity that you've ever done on LinkedIn simply by clicking the activity button. So
that's a good point.
That just like destroys a post that your previous boss made, we're going to see it. And ultimately, I mean, if you frankly, if you don't have the self-restraint on something that thousands of people are going to see, how am I going to trust you have the self-restraint on be a part of my team? Mm-hmm. So it's something to be aware of, that, you're always being watched, for lack of a better phrase.
Yeah.
And you'll hear on our podcast, I do talk a lot about more like heart issue stuff and like, hey, you need help with this if you're going to be good at your career.
We get into some therapeutical stuff on our podcast.
We go a little deep, but if we're talking about being a good teammate and being a great employee, you have to have that reciprocated. Ultimately, that's what makes you earn a great employer in a great position. So.
Dan?
Yeah, and I think you both just nailed it. I'm going to kind of take a different approach here when it comes to LinkedIn and kind of circle back to what we were just talking about. LinkedIn is your opportunity to find, that company that you want to go work for. So we talked about ATS systems. A lot of people just say, hey, throw your resume in there and just hope for the best because your resume is ATS proof. And it's like, of course, you're going to get billions of jobs now. It's like, well, no, like use LinkedIn to connect to who are potential hiring managers and what can I learn about them? If I'm going on an interview, who else could potentially be involved in that interview, or what are names that I might hear? If I'm going to interview for a job as a VP of HR, well, who else might be on my team? I should learn, a little bit about them. And, like Jake said, LinkedIn gives you an activity, button. So you can look to see what else are they interested? What are they passionate about? What are topics that they're talking about? Right. So like LinkedIn is such a fantastic tool. And when I hire somebody for my team, I take a look at their LinkedIn. It's not, the most important thing, but it's part of the process of, are they engaging with other people that are in the industry? Do they care? Or is this to them just a paycheck, right? How passionate are they about the industry? How much effort have they put in? And what kind of ultimately, and this goes back to social media in general, what kind of image are they putting, out for themselves, right? Social media is literally the only place in the entire world where you can control every single thing that you put out there, right? You can't control everything that somebody says about you, but you can control what you put out there. So that goes to beyond LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of these things are things that people are going to look at. So what am I doing? What image am I creating for myself out there? And that's all part of the picture. So I do consider LinkedIn a big part. And Taylor, going back to the original topic, is LinkedIn your resume? It doesn't have to be, right? I mean, my LinkedIn talks a lot more about things that I'm passionate about and interested in, than my resume otherwise, might, but that's just me.
No, I love that. So let's kind of go to the next topic, and I think this topic is very big for all three of us on this call. And if you want to check out us diving into this specific topic, check out our podcast, the Unicorn Finders. But for me, let's talk about personal brand. So. And again, we spent 30 minutes on this with our podcast. So let's try to do this in maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes. But what is personal brand? A lot of people hear it. So what is it? Why do I need one? Why do I need one, especially on the job search? I feel like that's a little different than why you would need a personal brand. So sure. Dan, I want to hear from you first and your thoughts on personal brand right now.
Right. I think personal brand is so important because remember, we're not just hiring a robot, right? We're not just hiring, somebody to do one specific task. We're hiring a person, right? So when we talk about, building out teams and what that looks like, and when we talk about, moving a product forward or moving a company forward, moving a team forward, whatever it might be, I need a person, right? So I want to know about who that person is. I want to know what drives that person, what their interests are, what capabilities they're going to bring to my team. But personal branding is so important because it differentiates you from another person. So, we talk a lot about when personal brand and putting it out there. So, maybe it's on LinkedIn and the messages that you're putting out about yourself on LinkedIn, it separates you from other people that may not be doing that. It connects you with potential other people that are talking about it or interested in it, may go to you for advice, may say, hey, you have a really great thoughts on HR or accounting and finance or IT. I really want to talk to you. This is something that I've been grappling with. What are your thoughts there? Or hey, we're looking for somebody like there that's out there. 3, it gets you in front of people that you may not otherwise have been connected to. I've been able to have some great conversations in my life with people that I had no idea that I'd ever be able to get connected with them because maybe they saw a post or I saw a post from them. Yeah. So personal brand is so important. And like I said, it goes back to you being able to create that. So be yourself, put yourself out there and put yourself in a position to be vulnerable for feedback and to grow and to learn from other people as well.
Dan, praise the Lord, man. You just crushed that. I love that. That was so good. Woo. All right, Jake, go.
Well, when you're building out a highly performant team, you can't have all the same personality. You can't have all the same person, right? I mean, especially if we're really being honest about why teams work well, it's because we're different and we can bring in different perspectives. The personal brand is going to be a little bit like that, about what is the shape of your puzzle piece that you're fitting into the workplace or into this team or into society for that matter. And some of that goes back to just all right, who am I? And, I've done this exercise every other year, sometimes every year. I just kind of write down like core beliefs and like what do I 5-year goals and where, how do I view myself in the market and how are people viewing me? And I get a real granular look about what that is and seeing if I'm on the right track about where I believe I should be. Now, you can't build your own personal brand if you don't know your why and your drivers and be really honest with yourself about how am I as a teammate and a worker or a supervisor or a parent or whatever. You can't do that if you don't have a real honest look at yourself, because then you're false advertising and that's bad. So what I recommend is being who you are and then making sure that who you are is a good person, and doing the work to be that person, so that you can be that through and through, and then just personify it. Speak honestly, speak openly. If you don't know the answer to something, I don't know what it is.
Let me, Jake, can I interrupt you? I always tell people to be unapologetically you. Don't try to be somebody else. There's a lot of people on LinkedIn and a lot of people in social media, and I guess just in life in general, that you look at them and be like, wow, they have 1 million followers, therefore I need to do everything that they do. Yeah. And all of these people are on LinkedIn right now. It's like, here's the way to get 50,000 followers. It's like, don't listen to them, right? Yeah. You're not going to be them. There's a lot of false prophets out there right now. There's a lot of people that don't hire people, telling people how to hire people. Be yourself. Be unapologetically you. I say this: if you're funny, be funny. If you're not funny, it's okay. If you're not funny, like put out good content. Yeah, I agree. You're not very funny. So I would say that be yourself, right? People will follow you based on their interests as well, right? But the only way that you can get people to follow you, if you will, or to engage in these conversations is by putting yourself out there and putting that content out there. But the most important thing that we can say about personal brand is, I say this and these guys make fun of me, is there's an old quote that says, when was the best time to plant a tree? 80 years ago. When's the second best time? Today, right? So if you're worried about your social brand and you're like, oh, I don't really know how to use LinkedIn, it's like, all right, well, let's figure out how to start today. Like, slide into my DMs. I'll help you get started, but start today. Put content out there today, engage today, and just build from there.
Well, and let me break it down a little bit more too, is, and again, we'll want to get to one more topic, then wrap it up. I can't believe it's already been 30 minutes. Time flies when you're having fun, but, people are like, well, you know what? I'm really bad at writing. I don't want to post, but like, what do I post? Like, I don't know what to post. So let's real quick go around the table, quote unquote, and say what things we have done specifically to help our personal brand. I'll go first. I started wearing Hawaiian shirts to code conferences because traditionally software engineers wear all black. So I wanted a way to stand out. Fast forward 2 years later, I ran into one of Jake's contacts at a code conference, and she knew of me because of my Hawaiian shirts. It's not that hard. I've also created, there's a lunch meetup. I've copied Jake's. Jake will get to his. I copied Jake's meetup idea, but I'm not the social butterfly that Jake is. I'm really good on a very intimate level. So it is a 10-person capped meetup that I do every month because I just want to have intentional conversations with people. So that's high level what I've done. Jake, what have you implemented that isn't writing thoughtful content on LinkedIn? Because quite frankly, you're bad at it.
I hate it. I hate doing it. I hate writing content on LinkedIn. I've had some really good ones this week, though. I'm not going to lie. But other than that,
you have. I'm impressed.
Like random streak. Yeah. I don't want to do that. I want to have conversations individually with people. I know it's important. I know it's good. I know it needs to happen in some capacity. But if it's not you, then don't force it to be you. Sometimes it's shining light on someone else. If there's great content that comes that you resonate with, just share it. And bring your content. Hey, I agree with this. This is great. Yay. And then just share it and walk away. But for me, from a personal brand perspective, I wanted to be known as someone that connected people. I loved that idea. I feel like I don't want to see people out in the cold and don't have a tribe. And if I could create a tribe that had less barriers to bring more people in, that's what I wanted to do, especially in my local community of the Raleigh-Durham area. So from that, we birthed the downtown Techies meetup. The only qualification is you have to be in tech or like tech or want to be related to tech
or
stuff.
can spell tech.
or can spell tech even. Yeah. And just come on in.
I'm in.
That's a bad competitor.
See, I'm funny, Dan.
Bring them on in, and we'll bring people in. So I just stand in that regard of like, I can just connect people that are smarter than I am and that need something more than I do, and be able to create that platform and avenue for doing this. I mean, that's one of the reasons we started our podcast, was like, hey, we happen to have a lot of followers and influence in our different spheres. Let's bring them together and shine light on other people that need that boost, right? That are doing good things in their company or in their relationships, or they just have great ideas and they just need that launch. Well, we can help with that. We don't need it, but we can give it. So why not? Right. Yeah. So that's just a little bit about how I built what I'm doing and why.
I love that. Dan, I want to hear what you've done down in sunny Tampa. Is it sunny today?
It's perfectly sunny.
Always sunny in Tampa.
One answer: memes.
That's it, man. Listen.
For me, yeah. Like there's a lot of people that put out really good written content. There's a lot of people that go out there and put really good verbal content or videos out there. I'm frankly an okay writer. I'm not like the most attractive person. So like on video, it's like probably not like the best. So like what I do is I try to bring some like levity, right, to LinkedIn or to social media. And I try to use that to engage in other discussions, right? And like I try to put some actual meaning behind some of them. But, you know, I'd like to think that I'm like a jokester, if you will, but like to kind of be kind of fun and like energetic in that way, like in the office. And I want people to think of, you know, the office is not just a place, or LinkedIn or social media is a place where you have to go and just get constantly pounded in of like, here are the 719 best ways to work from home during COVID. And, you know, here's the 47 things that you wanted to know about resume writing that you never knew. There's other people that are doing that. So if I can offer some levity and then from that engage in a discussion that's a little bit more than that, then I'll do that. But I'm also interested in sports. So I have a sports podcast and do that. I'm interested in wine. So get involved in that community. I'm really interested in education. I'm really interested in economic development in underserved areas. So I try to get involved in that. But if I can use memes, or if I can use, a gift of gab or humor to try to connect people, like I'd rather do that than, try to compete with people that may have a better gift than I do.
So good. Yeah. So the last area I want to hit before we wrap it up is, so let's talk about general stuff, right? So portfolio. So you have your resume, you have your LinkedIn written, right? So finally, like, is that enough in this market? Should there be more? And if there should be more, what is it? Jake, I'm gonna let you do this first.
Well, let's talk tech then real quick.
Yeah.
If we're going back to what you're passionate about, and you've been one of those people that can bring your work and passions together, and you are a true technologist, then you should show your work. If you're working on a new tool on the side, or you've got this startup or you're this idea with a friend and you've been hacking at it and trying to make that happen, throw that up on your GitHub and make your GitHub green, and make sure that it is on your resume, on your profile. Just kind of get feedback from some of that. If you're sensitive to the code and are worried it's like a really good idea and should get stolen, then just, hey, I'm working on this side project. Talk to me if you want to know about it, and don't say anything else about it. But I think the additional tools everything's digital right now. I mean, what's so great is that you can show your work. Sure, that some might be in private repos, but you can pull something else out of it, and be able to show that you are kind of that tinkerer. If you are someone that's trying to pivot away from an older technology to newer tech, all the more reason to show, yeah, I've been learning this. I did this Lambda school here and these YouTube videos, and here's what I've built with what I've learned over the last 3-6 months on weekends or nights and weekends. So that way you can show your work, right? Because a lot of times if you get stuck in an old tech and you're trying to modernize and bring new tech, and you're like, no, it's just syntax. I can totally do it. And that is somewhat true to a capacity, but that doesn't mean that the company you're going to wants to pay for that ramp up time for you to get that syntax. Just because you can doesn't mean they are ready to make that investment when they can find someone who already has that. So do the work yourself to start moving it.
I love that. Dan, any thoughts from a portfolio? What other individuals should have right now in this market? Dan, you're on mute.
Sorry, I think Jake nailed it. To have anything available is great. And I would say that if you've unfortunately, lost some time or, lost your job during this time, use some of this time to be able to put some work samples that are out there. If you're a BA and you have some time, a lot of that stuff is, kept with the company or private information. Spend some time and put some things together, because you can then show, like Jake said, what you've done. But if you're a developer, you should have a GitHub. If you're a designer or UI UX person, you need to have a portfolio. If you're in tech writing, a BA, you should have documentation. If you're a project manager, you should have some Visio or Microsoft project stuff that you can download. And if you're an accountant, have some Excel files ready.
Macros. I don't know.
Yeah, just do some show me how to do a pivot table, right? So VLOOKUPs, right? Or so all of those things are the more that you can have, the more of a picture you build of yourself when you're either applying for a job or you're in the interview process. So, when you're working for a company, some companies might think this is a little weird, but say, hey, we created this document. Do you mind if I scrub the personal information off of here or the private information off here and keep something for myself, right? So all of that stuff is handy, and you should definitely put it on your LinkedIn.
Yes.
And one of those things that ATF proofing says no hyperlinks, you can have a hyperlink on your resume.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree with that. All that. I think
printing it.
Say what?
No one's printing it. They're going to click on it. It's fine.
Exactly. I mean, I think for me, if you're just submitting a resume in this market, you're going to be behind. I think just to put it in perspective, I went from dealing with 10 candidates at one time pre-COVID to now around 50 at any given time. It's 5X, right? And so everyone's trying to get a job right now. You have to have something to differentiate yourself. And so if you're able to have the GitHub up, if you're able to have a portfolio, a dribble site or whatever, I think it will elevate you to the top of the list. All right, boys. So that
one other thing on it. All
right, go ahead, Jake. Go ahead. It better be good.
If you if you have time and all you're doing is searching for a job right now, which is a lot, try to use your skill sets to give back to a community and whatever. A nonprofit needs help with design or requirements gathering or development, or a brick and mortar doesn't have an e-commerce presence and they're SOL because everything's shut down right now. That opportunity is there. Twofold. One, it's the right thing to do. It's great for your communities. Two, you have something else to talk about when they say, what have you been doing the last month? And instead of just saying, I've been interviewing everywhere. You got to have something
watching Netflix.
Yeah. Or
I finished Netflix
and the internet. And now I'm here at this interview. So, just find a way to do that. And then if you want, you can use that as a miniature portfolio project and throw that on LinkedIn. Hey, I was helping this local nonprofit with this design work. By the way, they're fundraising. By the way, I'm also open for other projects or looking for a job. Here's some of the work we've done, and kind of just utilize little bits and pieces to go, beyond yourself. And ultimately it actually helps you.
I love that.
It's an interesting cycle.
I love that. That was a great ending point, Jake. Good job.
Yeah, great ending point. I want to answer Brooke Markowitz's question. She asked us 21 minutes ago, and I don't want to forget it. Our specific bullet point sections an absolute must for all resumes? No, not necessarily. It really depends on what you're looking for and what the format of your resume is. Some people put bullet points in there, especially in the tech field or, some more highly specialized fields where you can list either certain technologies or things of that nature. I would say that if all of your bullet points are, problem solver and you know how to use Microsoft
great communicator.
Office, great communicator, incredible writer, then probably not. You probably don't need those. But if you have a bullet point section, then the answer or the additional information to those bullets should be in your resume, right?
Yeah.
You shouldn't just say, hey, I know how to use Python and then never talk about it again. Right. So use that bullet point section wisely, almost as like an aperitif, right? This is like a little tickle of what you might get more. Right. But if your bullet points are non-tangible things like a great communicator, I'm just going to assume that everybody, whether they're a good communicator or not, is going to put on the resume that they're a good communicator. Right. And if you don't know how to use Microsoft Office now, then sorry. I'm not interested, right? That's assumed, right? So that's the answer, Brooke. I'm not sure if that answers that question, but you can slide into my DMs and we can talk a little bit more about it if you want. And shout out to all the people from that have been listening. A couple people from India and Germany. So big shout out.
Yeah. Those are we're international.
Ohio,
boys now.
Wisconsin.
We're international.
West Virginia.
So I always like to wrap up our podcast episodes, and I'm gonna do it now with a fun question, a little peel behind the onion, if you will, of us and just some fun little facts. And so as the three people who are still watching at this point can see that we are all wearing floral shirts. So Dan, Jake, and I are models for Chubbies, not really, but we did get featured on one Instagram post, so that was a blast. So we all have a love and passion for, as what Dan says, high fashion Hawaiian. And so I wanted to go around the virtual roundtable and give some shout outs to our favorite floral shirt company. So Jake, you are first.
Well, truth be told, I used to have mine custom made by Trader Joe's for 6 years.
Sick brag.
That was a big start to my Hawaiian addiction. And then now that I can't shop at Goodwill, I am ordering these bad boys. Target's got the sick prints.
They do.
Ooh,
Great prints. Dan?
Taylor, you're going to talk about my favorite brand here in a second, but my second favorite brand is a brand that I'm wearing now, and it's where we were featured on Instagram. That's our friends over at Chubbies. Not only are they high fashion, but they're also
look good. You look fit.
They fit good. I've been
good print
recently. Yeah. So big shout out to them and bonobos, however they need a pronunciation guide on their website.
I just ordered my dad a shirt for Father's Day. If he's watching, surprise. And then so for me, I am wearing Duvin. Dan, are they around?
They are. They're about an hour east of Tampa here.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm wearing Duvin. Yeah. They feel great. They're I feel like an ad. They feel great, and they repel water, and they're great. And you should wear them as well. Thank you
very good
for watching my ad. So anyways, thanks again for obviously tuning into this. It's been an absolute pleasure. And again, if you want to reach us, feel free to email us. I'm Taylor@Vaco.com. Jake, you're Jake at Vaco, right? And then Dan, you're Dan at Vaco.com.
Yep.
And we all have Twitters. Boom. And obviously find us on our podcast, The Unicorn Finders. Oh, look at that.
Look at that.
Hey. Look at that. Here we go. I didn't do that. I didn't do that. I don't know how to do that.
I didn't pay for that.
I didn't pay for that. That's pretty cool. Cool. All right, boys. Let's do it again sometime soon, okay? Thanks, Vaco, for having us.
Thanks, everyone. Bye, Mom.
Love you, mean it.
Bye, Mom.